Okay, so our first slide says, investing in employee development is an investment in the future of your organization. So in this case, the organization we're referring to is your school. Whether you're in the government sector or your private sector, you own your own school, you're working in a school, changing the narrative in the school. For your school to grow, for your school to develop, it's important to have certain key factors. And we're saying here that one of those key factors is your employees, your teachers, your teaching staff, your school staff. Very important. Sometimes like I like to share and interact. We've had situations where parents come to school and say, oh, if I didn't bring my child to this school will not exist. And then they forget one thing. What if you brought your child to the school and there was nobody to teach your child? Will the child be able to teach himself or herself, especially at the early years, at the foundation level? So the teaching staff are more important than many parents this side of the world tend to realize. Learning, you brought your child to school to learn, to study, to receive knowledge and instruction that will take him or her to the next level. So we cannot underrate the fact that teaching staff are important. Other staff are important too. But guess what? It is because of the teaching and learning process that takes place in schools that we have the other roles. You will not have the accountant or the bursar if teaching and learning was not taking place in that school. You wouldn't have the bus driver, taking the children to school, bringing them back, if teaching and learning wasn't taking place. So the core, in the school is the teaching and learning process, and it's teachers that make that happen. When you take that out of the equation, you have any other organization, but it might not be called a school. So I agree with this statement by Jackie Kennedy that investing in employee development, in this case, your teachers, your school staff, is an investment in the future of your organization. And in this case, we're talking about the school system, be it the nursery school, the primary school, the secondary school, even at the tertiary level. So it's really, really key. It's important. Let's even look at the tertiary level. What happens when lecturers go on strike? For example, they want increase in salaries and compensation and benefits. What happens? Everybody in Nigeria, for example, feels the heat. The children don't have classes, they go back home, and then the parents begin to say, why are you at home? Go back to school. Oh, this strike is affecting this and affecting that. So it's key, it's important, and we cannot neglect that fact. We cannot neglect that fact. As a nation, as a society, we cannot neglect the importance that education is key, and that the driving forces of education, which are your staff, in this case that we're addressing today, must be taken care of. So I want to go ahead. Mr. Denike, can I have the next slide, please? All right, so our introduction says, a critical factor in the growth and sustainability of schools is staff retention, just as we've said before. Educational progress can be hindered by high turnover rates of teachers and school staff, but implementing effective retention strategies can help schools maintain a stable and motivated workforce. Okay, so it's a given, we know that even not just narrow down to schools, but to other institutions, when your staff are disgruntled, when your employees are not satisfied, that dissatisfaction can lead to a lot of things. It can lead to non-productive behavior, it can lead to a high turnover, and that's what we're addressing now. So what are we saying in this phase, in this season, taking Nigeria as a case study? Things have happened in the country, economic downturn, where teachers have been disgruntled to say, oh, am I sure I still want to teach? Let me go and do business. Let me try this and try that. There are other options. I can go and work somewhere else. But question, if our teachers leave the classroom, who will teach our children? AI, social media, the internet? Yes, we have options now. And Mr. Wole will agree with me. We do have options. But guess what? There is something about another person coming to guide you through a process, to mentor you, to coach you, to teach you, to train you, to lead you. There's a lot we learn. Some of us here remember our teachers, not just for what they taught, but for who they were, their personality types, the way they dressed, the way they spoke, the impact they brought. So there's that personality aspect of teaching and learning, not just the subject matter. So it's very important that schools develop and do certain things to retain their teaching staff and the school staff. Okay, let's go on, please. Okay, Mr. Denike, next slide, please. All right, so we want to talk about high employee turnover. Okay, reading from here. So this is referring to a situation where a significant proportion of employees leave an organization within a short period, necessitating frequent hiring and training of new staff. This phenomenon can be voluntary. Okay, let me break it down. So I'm not just doing theory. Okay, so let's talk about this reality. I believe it's a reality. And if you as a school owner, or if you as a school leader has faced this kind of phenomenon before, or had this experience before, let's have a look at it. Employees leave your organization within a short period. You hire them, they're there 3 months, 6 months, they're there 1 year, and they leave. And it happens over and over and over again. You're talking about high turnover. Yeah. So question is, what necessitates this? What causes this? Why would employees be so disgruntled that just in a short time of coming in, they're already saying, we want to leave? We're going to have a look at that. So we said this phenomenon can be voluntary, which means the employee decides to resign, or the employee has, based on the policy of work in the school, that school, has stayed and it's time to retire, and then they leave. Or it can also be involuntary, where the school leaders or the school management terminates the employees' employability status in the school, or they're laid off. Okay, so these are the things that cause turnover, high turnover in the school. Some of the things, but we want to be looking at some practical issues. Okay, let's have a look at it. Auntie Adenike, please, can I see the next slide? Okay, causes of staff turnover. Now, these are things, yeah, Odile Ferdinand, good afternoon. I've seen that you've raised your hand. Okay, you can type in what you want to say while we go on, and then during the Q&A we'll address some of the issues. So causes of staff turnover. Now the first one says inadequate compensation and benefits. You know, in HR we have the compensation for staff, employees, and that refers to the base pay, the core salary, the remuneration that is agreed between the, in this case, the school and the employee. And then you also have the benefits. Now, the benefits are they may not necessarily be financial. They may not necessarily be financial. There are other things that, you know, are intended and important for the staff. For example, work-life balance, career development, you know, and other things that create perks and important things for the staff. So let's look at some things.